I had so much fun watching London Calling, and
Awesome.
I was kind of subverted. So like whenever I get like an opportunity like this, I like to avoid trailers and I like to
Sure.
avoid any kind of TV spots or anything, right? And so when the movie started, I was expecting almost like a John Wicky universe,
Yeah.
especially with that opening
Yeah.
scene.
Yeah.
And it's so stylishly shot throughout, but especially that opening sequence, I was like, oh, this is going to be badass. And then there's that sudden kind of subversion to comedy. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm all in now.
Oh,
But I,
that's cool here.
I want to talk about that tonal
Yeah.
balance of getting the comedy beats and making it really fun and light, but also kind of encompassing like the badass qualities that come with being an assassin, you know?
That's a great observation, and that's exactly what we wanted to do. We wanted to kick the movie off, and you're thinking Josh is basically Statham. I mean, I'm a gamer. That was my Easter egg for Hitman Agent 47, pretty much. Yeah, which is funny because Oliphant and Josh are basically doppelganger twins.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun to talk about. But no, yeah, because for me, I think that everything I do, I try to inject some levity and heart into it. But specifically, being influenced a lot by these seminal sort of buddy cop movies of the '90s and even the '80s, like Midnight Run, have a heavy influence on me. And so, um, I find that often now we lean too far in one direction. So you get a lot, like, I'll give you a great example. Heads of State did it great. Heads of State was a recent action comedy that I absolutely loved, didn't expect it, and they really balanced sort of the action comedy well. But very often now I find that we aren't hitting that mark. And so for me, I was like, okay, if you always start it from a place rooted in character and you ground it with something, you have some heart, I find that those choices you make inform the rest of the film. And so, we wanted the action stuff to be action packed. We wanted the comedy to be funny. And so, Josh and I had already worked together on Bandit. So I knew kind of what the humanity he would bring and the levity he would bring that I sort of didn't see. And that's kind of why we work really well together and why we decided to make a second movie is because we're both goofy, funny guys, and we both really have an irreverent sense of humor. And we kind of wanted to do that, but in sort of the scope of an action film. Because I'm a huge action nut. I'm an action aficionado, but I pass very often on projects because I don't want to make action if I can't pull it off the right way.
Mm.
So finally, this was like an opportunity to kind of do the stunts I wanted to do and do shoot it the way that I wanted to shoot it. And so, yeah.
Totally. I'm curious, like, so you mentioned that from Bandits, you guys just wanted to work together again. When you got the script, did you instantly know that it was going to be Josh that you were reaching out to?
Well, it's funny because sometimes you do and sometimes you don't. I got this script while we were shooting the last day on Bandit.
Oh,
So
okay.
Josh was actually the last person I was thinking about because then when kind of when you're on set and you're thinking about the next thing, you're not, I mean, as much as you love working with someone, you're not always like, oh, that's the first person I'm going to think of. It's ironic, but no, at first I was like, oh, maybe I need someone British, maybe I need this, maybe I need that. But as I kind of did my own rewrite, I got the script and I did some work on it. And I started looking at it. I'm like, well, hold on. I really want to humanize this guy. I really want to sort of inject some levity into it. Oh my God, I got to give this to Josh. And I gave it to him. And 2 days later, he was like, what the hell? Why didn't you give this to me sooner?
Yeah. I love the characters throughout. Even like some of, Alistair's so good and Benson's character is so good. I do want to talk about Jeremy Ray Taylor just because I just think he's so charming,
Yeah.
especially and in this he's just like really lovable but
Yeah.
very competent. Like
Yes.
he's a little clumsy, but he's competent when it comes
Yeah.
to like the action and like getting things
Yeah.
down. And I just want to talk about kind of like taking this unassuming young kid and turning him into like a badass throughout the process of this. Was that always the intention?
Yeah. Look, I think that kid's a movie star. When you watch the It films, he really is the heart, I think, of those storylines.
Totally.
Like he
Yeah.
really is the heart of those storylines. And that's what we were looking for. And so, we kind of cast a wide net and we looked at a lot of different really incredible young actors, but Jeremy just really stood out amongst the batch. And as soon as the two of them, Josh and Jeremy, got together, I could see the chemistry, I could see the magic. Jeremy is funny as well. He's got good ideas. But this kid is athletic. He's tough. He has like a shooting range, like a SWAT range he runs. He rebuilds cars. He's a gearhead. And I'm like, dude, I need you soft and cuddly. I need you soft. He's constantly like, I want to do some like action shit. I'm like, no, no, there's a time and place for it, but we can't completely do that the whole movie because it's going to take away from what I need you to be. There's like this innocence to it. But no, he absolutely crushed it in this movie, and I think their chemistry is undeniable, and I think it's
Totally.
it's what makes the movie work.
Yeah, definitely. I really bought into the connection that they had, and I just want to talk about these side characters really quick because
Yeah,
I like having your leads be so good and so charming is one thing, but when
yeah,
you expand out the universe, that's your chance to like really
yes,
play with like the reality, like
yeah,
what is my universe look like? And like I said, Rick Hoffman's Benson is this like chaotic, but also he still loves his son. Like he has all these like
yeah,
layers. And then
yeah,
I really love Alistair just because
yeah,
he's like your Rasputin in this movie, which I thought
yeah.
was hilarious. But what was kind of the fun in creating those like those side characters, auxiliary characters to the main narrative?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's a very astute observation. So to me, the way I always looked at this was, you need this rogues gallery of wacky, offbeat characters. But what's so great about it is that if you look at every character in this film, they all really think they're the good guy doing the right thing. It's really only Julian that is pure, if you
Yeah.
want to break it down. Because Josh is trying to get back to his son. Rick is trying to groom his son. He's trying to teach his son. Alistair just wants out. Seamus just wants to help his brother. I mean, you got all these different characters who really believe that they're doing the right thing. And Darby, Darby's just trying to like honor his family. So you have all these people. And what I love about sort of how Josh plays the straight man in it is that he's just reacting to the absurdities around him, which is, I think,
Mm-hmm.
what a lot of the comedy sort of lends itself to. But casting this thing was so much fun. Like Rick and I were supposed to work together like 10 years ago and it didn't work out. And as soon as I kind of read this and started crafting it, I was like, oh my God, I need Rick here because Rick is, I mean, it feels like he steals every moment that he's in.
Yeah, I don't know what he's eaten, but he's hilarious. It's what
So
it's so
funny.
good.
And
Yeah.
no, Neil, and you're right. Neil Sandilands, who is an incredible talent out of South Africa, who I know sort of got popular with stateside audiences in Sweet Tooth, but
Mm.
he is just off his rocker. He's incredible in this movie.
Totally. Yeah. He has a lot of like presence on screen as well, which is great. But you mentioned the stunts and like wanting to shoot the action how you wanted to. I do want to just talk about the process of like
Yeah.
crafting those gunfights, even the LARP scenes. Like there's some really cool like cinematic stuff happening, especially that last battle. So what was kind of your benchmark of success when it came to the action for this film?
It's a great question. We're never, I mean, I'm a director. I feel like we're never happy, no matter how cool or good something is that we shoot. But this is the closest I've come for sure. And no, so my DP and I, Alex, we've been doing this for 7 years together. We
Wow.
started on the Uncharted fan film, and we would sit down, map things out, do these kind of overheads, and work out the pieces. And so, I think action's one of my languages that I speak really well. And so I always feel like there's a stylistic approach, like a technical approach, but what is the story approach? And so I feel like every action sequence needs a beginning, middle, and end. It needs a goal, it needs
Mm,
an arc. And so, if you look at the sort of centerpiece of the movie, which is your sort of desert shootout, which is my favorite sort of action scene in the movie, a lot of it is about, the character arcs. But what we did was we got together with Grant Powell, who was our stunt coordinator, who, did The Woman King and Tomb Raider, like a
oh
legend.
wow. Yeah.
And we just kind of sat down and had fun mapping it out. We'd stay late on certain days, come early on other days, and we would all just play a different part and walk the beats and find this sort of organic, kinetic energy in the action. And for me, I always like to keep the camera moving, so I'm always looking for fun ways to keep it energetic and because action scenes can get boring and rote, and
Yeah.
they don't always sort of resonate. But on this one, we really kind of went in and even the motel sequence, which is very short and brief. We went into the gym and Josh kind of came up with the idea for the toilet, just sort of having fun as we were sort of laying out the geography. But yeah, putting together those sequences was a ton of fun, especially the LARPing.
You mentioned the Uncharted fan film, which is so funny because after I watched this, I watched that again, and there's certain moments that just have really stuck with me over the years. But out of curiosity, how has making a fan film helped like your trajectory in making movies and TV down the road? Because I've heard like differing opinions, right? Like if you do a fan film, they won't give you that IP or so
Yeah.
and so, but what has been your experience? Because you're obviously making movies, making great movies, and continuing to do the job. But Was that always the case, or did you ever have pushback?
Yeah, it's funny. I was really young when I started making features. I was 22 when I made my
Mm,
first feature. And I did these two movies, and the second one was a Netflix movie that ended up doing pretty well. But I was still sort of not getting what I want. And I feel like, listen, we're always hustling. The hustle never stops. You talk to anybody who's successful, you still have to make the right calls, and you still have to push and be tenacious and kind of relentless in a lot of ways. But I wasn't getting the kind of work that I wanted, and I was turning down a lot of stuff. It wasn't until I made Uncharted that I kind of look at this new chapter that started with kind of, it started with Bandit really, and then this back to back. And so I find that that film is sort of the gift that keeps on giving, to be honest. It's one of those things that it sounds crazy to say, but it touched people around the world
mhm.
and it really affected people. And I know that it meant a lot to a lot of people. And so when people put two and two together and they realize, oh, you did that too, they kind of spring up and they get really excited. And yeah, so it's I don't know that it changed much of my approach because my approach has always been the same, which is to find these stories that really speak to me and have something to say in sort of a commercial populist way. But the fan film definitely gave me street cred, a lot of street
Mm.
cred that I didn't have before. And so when people saw Bandit, they're like, "Oh, it's your first feature after after making a fan film." I was like, "No, I made a couple of features before this," but it was kind of funny how it kind of opened up a very new dimension for me.
Totally. Yeah, I could talk to you for a long time about kind of that process, but I do have to wrap. Congratulations, really. London Calling is such a fun, just purely escapist film for me. So I had a really fun time with it, and I'm excited to see what y'all are cooking up with Death Stranding coming up too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, excited to talk to you on the next one.
Totally.